This is the Will Wright Show for Food, Repo Show. The first one is the Will Wright premiere, and this is the intro narrative. So, why now Micropolis Repo Shows and the Simprov Wedding Playset? This is the introductory narrative for funders, collaborators, and the Steam Sims 1 audience. Maps what we're building to what was already built, shipped, and loved, and why the moment is different in 2026. So, the idea in one breath. Player-created content as a family medium. No modding subculture for experts. Grandparents learning Photoshop and XML to make objects for grandkids. That actually happened decades ago. And parents who grew up playing Sims in 2000 as kids and then growing up, having their own kids, and now it's released on Steam, and they can teach Blender to their kids as well as play the game with them and make objects with them. Weddings you orchestrate together in a toy world that takes your relationship seriously. Will Wright named this in 1996 in Terry Winograd's User Interface Symposium. Net shared user content, plug-in objects, data portability, and the hobby model. Don Hopkins, Heather, and Steve Alvey, Sim Freaks and Sim Slice, Donna and the Sim Babes artists, and a whole community already built it for The Sims 1. Life interrupted. The work sat in drawers. Now's the time to raise it again, openly, republishably, on modern rails, for a generation that can finally marry whoever they love in the real world and wants to play that truth in a game world too. This document is the bridge between Proof, the archive sources in this repo, and Plan, Repo Show plus Repo Show Constellation. So Proof it worked before. We're not pitching vapor. The evidence lives in blah, 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 and content catalogs. Sim Freaks is Heather Alvey, the Castella has object suites semantic depth. Then Sim Slice, Steve Alvey. Sim Slice, Nested Sim City. Two Sims fans both had their own content catalogs of amazing stuff, got married, and I collaborated with them and Donna Sim Babes on Simprov, which is a wedding playset, compositional orchestration. We never got around to releasing that, and now, Sim Freaks and Sim Slice, Heather and Steve have combined their forces to make a magnum opus zombie Sims. Current magnum opus pack still shipping online. They're still adding new stuff too. So it's bigger than any expansion pack that EA has ever made. Now, what we're doing here in this show and in the Micropolis core repo for developing the open source version of SimCity and tools, a new generation of tools that run in the web browser for reading and writing Sims save files and creating Sims objects like Transmogrifier and SimShow, Rugomatic let you do. But this is not just for the Sims. It's called Soul City, and it's for all games. It's like a liminal place, this heavenly in between all the games where you can have bridges to import and export, not just characters, but like go shopping in other games, you know, taking photos and writing stories like the Sims Family album, but in other games, and then coming back to the Sims and importing those stories into your album, maybe even creating objects like a book with photos and the story of your vacation, or go to the Wig-O-Rama store and have a custom-made wig, and then get a Wigomatic machine, and it puts all your wigs into it, and then as you're going through customs back to the Sims, it just goes through luggage and gets delivered into your catalog, or even updated the one you already had in your house to have your new wigs in it. And that's the idea of having this Soul City be a liminal place that can be like not only tools, deterministic tools, but the LLM can do stuff, direct editing. So, but anyway, before that, get The Sims on Steam. We made this game. We want EA to see Steam sales and documented fan culture, not another 26-year hostility cycle. It would be nice if they, like, for example, released it for the Mac, things like that. We want to get enough players excited about it that they'll start maintaining this. And now, what is here? Deep user-created content tools, a whole new generation, written from the scratch, clean room, open source, and not just an individual. Like, see, Transmogrifier was like a tool to import and export Sims objects into XML and BMP files that you could read and edit and then recolor or totally redraw or totally reprogram. So, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're reading the binary files, but we're writing YAML files and PNG files instead of XML and BMP and things like that, but much more. So we can read every bit of the save file, and we can edit your relationships, and we can create pets and lovers and wire them up. So this is all within just like deterministic tools to do all this, but driven by the LLM imagining stories or scenarios and then using the tools to make it happen in your save file and make new content. So anyway, so Soul City is just like there's also a beautiful story behind the name. Look that up. So it was an anti-racist town that actually Richard Nixon supported. Very interesting story, but we totally align with its values. That is exactly what this is about. So now, anyway, already in 1996, Will had this dream of data portability and putting games inside of other games and going into a SimCity save file and playing The Sims in one of his houses. And he said, like, Maxis, for a long time before 1996, had the goal of data portability between games. And they shipped Streets of SimCity, where you can drive around your SimCity save file, and SimCopter, where you can fly around your SimCity save file. But it didn't actually go that much further. You can't, like, move your Sims characters even between Sims 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the EA's own franchise. They haven't even done this. I mean, so we, as third parties, want to do it from the outside, but not just to EA games. So Tiny Life is a beautiful work of love that's like The Sims 0 if it were done in the 80s with pixel 8-bit graphics and just meticulously beautiful. That's even easier for users to make, right? So this is an independent developer who's made a love letter to The Sims that looks like it was Sims 0 from years before, taking it into the exact opposite direction that Sims 2, 3, 4 took it. And we want to make a bridge between The Sims and his game, Tiny Life, so that like a Tiny Life character could come into Soul City and meet a character from The Sims and get married and maybe adopt a dog and a cat and then go back into Tiny Life, right? And then decide, now we're going to move to The Sims for the summer. So that's the idea. Porting people between games is like the most basic elemental hydrogen, okay? But then we can build other things too for games. And different games have different types of objects, but we can interpolate between them. So, but anyway, so in the pursuit of making the Sims wedding playset, we were having trouble getting everybody to sit down. So we made the crowd sitter, which is sort of like a magnet for people that will make them line up and sit in seats and stand up and pay attention. But then they started peeing all over the place because we left it on for a while. So I made a Buddha, which just makes everyone happy for any amount of time, and they don't have to go to the bathroom, and they don't have to eat, and it just keeps you happy, right? And then for weddings, we made the playset started out the apex tip of the pyramid, the orchestrating object, like Zombie Sims has an orchestrating object, which is the ham radio that you start all the actions like zombie invasion. So generally a coherent Sims expansion pack like this will have the first object that you use that everything else comes from. And so for what we made was the hope chest. And you put it down and you open it up, you click a pie menu, and the first thing that's unlocked is like, summon a wedding consultant. And she comes and she gives you like magazines you can put on the table or flip through for different purposes, like choosing a cake or choosing a photographer to hire or choosing the person to marry you. We even have like a clown marry you and stuff. So, but anyway, so it's a plug together system that's self-revealing in a tree of objects that you're going to need. It's like a technology tree but it's not technology, it's a romance tree. So the first thing you have to do to have a wedding is fall in love with somebody, right? So we give you this cheat object, Cupid. There's a whole video, speed dating with Cupid. I basically clone the phone, and the phone has a menu of all the families, all the houses, with submenus of all the people. And I was like, oh, that's exactly what I need to fall in love. Instead of giving them a phone call, it invites them over. We greet them at the front door. We kiss, and we fall in love. And then whatever happens might happen. And, if you try to propose to them, but you're stinky and they're tired and you haven't eaten and they haven't, then maybe they'll slap you and go home. But anyway, at least it unlocks love. So, and then love unlocks the next menu item in the hope chest and the wedding consultant, like to propose. And then so there's this whole like state machine that's represented as all this network of objects, and you get a proposal, and then you make wedding invitations, and you pick on the document of like, who am I going to invite? Same as the phone, you can pick people. I don't know if we have pets yet, but I will make it so you can invite pets to your wedding, because I had to upgrade the Cupid because I'd done it before pets, and it didn't let you fall in love with pets. So now it does. So you can't go any further than we don't have animations for that. But I digress. So that's the crowd sitter, is like just one component in the wedding play set that you need to orchestrate a dream wedding. And the dumb old voting machine is sort of a simulation of a voting machine that you can hack. So, and then Halloween tombstones it's a web. I said, like, we got all these like Windows desktop tools for making objects, and even Rugomatic was like a simple drag and drop, so you don't have to touch XML or images. You can just make rugs easily. But then Halloween tombstones, I thought we need a website that lets you make custom objects. So we have two templates of a somber tombstone and then a fun spooky tombstone. So the Halloween tombstones, they'll haunt you. So all the tombstone is you type the name of who you want dead, or who you didn't want dead, depending. And then you write a eulogy, and then you upload a picture. And boy, that was before the internet went bad, wasn't it? I've got archives of like thousands of these. It's like siblings, wishing their little brother dead and writing he farted himself to death in a big poopy tub or something. It's really funny stuff. But anyway, then there's a somber, to a real person. And what you can do with that, instead of summoning a ghost, is just put flowers on the grave. So we have so there's kind of two styles of tombstone, but each let you write anything you want. This is the essential. I'm trying to make these like atomically simple examples that just show like one thing you can do at a time. That's what I was trying to do back then. And what I'm at the point, even past the point now, is making a platform of these things and being able to combine them into very complex objects. So especially nice to have LLMs to help with that. So anyway, where was I? Intro narrative to Wright Premiere. So this is kind of what we're going to explain and ask people to help us do, especially Sims fans and people who create content, like especially sort of the site creators like Heather and Steve. So anyway, all this kind of started for me. Well, it didn't start. I knew Will from before for porting SimCity to Unix, but then Terry Winograd said, "Hey, Will's giving a talk at my class. Do you want to come and see?" Of course. So 1996, the talk wasn't about The Sims, since it wasn't even named The Sims yet, but it was about a retrospective of 3 games he'd shipped. Sim Ant, which was too simple, Sim Earth, which was too complicated, and SimCity 2000, which was just right. And right at the end, this cheeky student asked, "What are you working on now?" And Will was like gently taken aback and had to take a step back and say, like, "You may be getting more of an answer than you're ready for here." And then he just, before he dove into The Sims, that is Dollhouse, demo, he made a point, and he said, Maxis has been working on this idea of moving data between games for a long time. And then he said, this is what The Sims is about, and showed The Sims. So, but anyway, the point is here, I mean, I knew a grandmother who made Sims objects for her grandchildren and played The Sims with them. Like, instead of knitting another scarf like my grandmother did. So, I mean, they were great scarves, but they wore out. But if it's a sim object, those kids are going to have that for life and be able to give it to their own kids now that they're grown up and have parents. So the audience here is kids who played The Sims originally and now have kids. And maybe they downloaded stuff, and maybe they created stuff and uploaded stuff. And maybe they want to make new stuff, and maybe they want to teach their kids how to use, image editors and 3D editors like and video editors like Blender, and that is what the Sims user created content community encourages. So Miyamoto gave a couple different game developer conference keynotes in 2 generations of his amazing work. So the first one, it was the Wii. He talked about how he designs from like how you physically interact with the device, how you're touching it, and make that be fun. And then he designs into the computer, and then like what colors are we going to draw on the screen, and what patterns, and what rules will we have. So, but first you have to have in your mind that they're going to have a hell of a lot of time, like with that little pin thing. And, so he showed a girl in her grandfather's lap playing that game, and her grandfather was just delighted watching. He may not have understood the rules of the game, but he saw his granddaughter was having a great time, and that was the most entertaining thing for him. And same with like Dance Revolution. That's not a Nintendo, I don't think, but Wii Sports, the whole Wii, is turning the player into a spectacular performance that people are much more interested in watching their friend wave their arms around and be delighted than like watching what like colored pixels are being painted on the screen. So that is his design process that we want to apply. And so basically the player is the spectacle. So that's okay. Anyway, so Micropolis is the open source version of SimCity, and I'd always wanted Maxis and EA to open up SimCity, and I'd written some proposals to make an educational version, but it didn't really go anywhere. Everybody wanted to, but you know how that is being in a giant company like EA, and getting the lawyers to do anything costs tens of thousands of dollars. So, but there was a long now talk in, I think, 2006 in San Francisco, where Will Wright and Brian Eno were talking, and Stuart Brand took questions for the audience, and 2 people asked very pointed questions and put poor Will on the spot, but he didn't mind, because they asked, like, well, SimCity has all these politics in it, and we don't know where they are, and all these rules, and we would like to know what they are and see them and change them, and why don't you make SimCity free? And the other person asked effectively the same question about Spore, which was just very new and published, and Will was demonstrating. So, and they both loved the idea. Brian Eno immediately was like all over that. So, and Will loved it, and it just explains some very interesting, well, reasons why that's hard. But what he said, that if the game manages to make you question what rules it's using because they don't line up with what you know about the real world, then in one sense it succeeded. So, but anyway, that kind of set the tone and primed the pump. And about, a couple months later, a few hundred days, it turns out the one laptop per child project needed constructionists children's software that they could look at the source code and learn from. And Alan Kay has some very good criticisms, which perfectly align with these Long Now Foundation talk audience questions, which is basically SimCity needs to be a glass box and not a black box. And students and children and adults need to be able to change those rules. So that is exactly why, that is the motivation for making it open source. But OLPC provided a framework and a argument that we could make to EA executives and lawyers that was about, like, Walter Bender was basically making a stone soup that was this. He'd come along and he had a big cauldron and he had a stone that he put in it and say, hey, everybody, we're making a soup. Bring ingredients into the soup. And like Red Hat brought improvements to the Linux kernel to sleep the processor when it's not busy, to save battery power and all these other things. And, Mary Lou brought like an incredible technology for hybrid color and monochrome screens you could use under bright sunlight that could actually be manufactured by existing factories. And, Mitch Bradley brought open firmware forth to be the firmware for this machine and hacked the boot ROMs and things. And see, everybody was, Snap Squeak and eToys, Alan Kay donated that. So all these things were being put into the soup, and that was an argument that EA and their lawyers could understand. We got Eben Moglen to talk to them about what GPL3 means and discuss how they could protect it. And yeah, they signed on. Will, strongly endorsed it, and they were like, okay, and they appointed people to run it through, and we had to get it through QA, which was interesting, but we did. Anyway, fast forward to now, we have a version of Micropolis that the C++ code compiles into WASM and runs in the web browser, and with a WebGL and a Web GPU renderer. So working on that now. That's what we want to talk about, and what to do with it, and how to make it multiplayer, and how to make it more educationally useful, and make courseware around it. So there's a whole bunch of things we need to do for that. So let's see. The thing is, now we can do things like putting agents in that are your advisors that can actually look at your city and analyze the history and give you really great advice. And we can also make newspapers that write stories about your city. So, but not just introducing AI into it to write stuff, but whatever the AI can do, which is like writing or playing the games, writing the newspaper, journalism, we want players to be able to take that role too. So we want the players and the AI and the editing tools themselves to be on the same level of, like, editing tools are like vehicles you can get in and drive around, like the bulldozer, or you could be the monster, but besides destroying stuff, maybe you could lay eggs or zones or whatever. So we want to kind of make multi-roles and invite multiple players in to play those roles, and on the same level as inviting AIs in to play those roles too. So anyway, so so the idea is here, now we're going to make a repo show about that. And we want to go to Will and all these other people and get the ideas. And we don't have to implement them yet. We can implement some of them, but we want to get the designs down, checked into the repo, and let other people both implement them and copy them and riff off of them and build them into their own games. So now the show, there is a repo called Will Wright Show for Food. And it's a mono repo, so it can have like lots of different apps and libraries and modules, and we're developing. The idea is to develop a library of shared code. Already doing that in the Micropolis core thing. So we're going to build on top of that. So, because that has stuff like pie menus and windows with tabs and things like that you need to make both Micropolis or SimCity and the Sims tools and other tools for other games. So we're making this platform, and it's going to have ways to import, plug in bridges to get stuff into the repo is the storage for this Soul City. It will store side by side the save files and metadata for each game that your character travels to. So that's the idea. So it really needs to be done now. So and outside of EA, because if EA, it's a good thing that Maxis never got around to implementing this in a cross-cutting way, because it would be called EAML, and it would be this god-awful like XML. Like, okay, when Microsoft Word save as XML, and it's not like XML that makes sense to any other program. It's XML that is a one-to-one mapping to the binary Olay object dumps files that okay. So it's XML used in a way that locks you into games, and that's what EA's hypothetical. I even gave a talk once saying, hey, we should use XML for games to like I'm doing. So, but I'm glad they didn't listen to me, because it needs to be done outside of XML. That too. It needs to be done outside of EA on public grounds across all games, including indie games and including games EA thinks is their competition. And it needs to be using modern file formats like YAML or JSON or CSV or whatever, not XML unless you want to. Okay. But I'm not as much of an XML evangelist as I used to be. So, but anyway, so we've done all this before. We have all the plans. We were preparing to do this for years, and now it's a lot easier than it was. So, we want to do it in stages. And Micropolis Core, this first stage that we're getting very near to delivering, is a playable city simulation game. And then we can start breaking it open and so and into reusable pieces and using that for all kinds of other things. So, but anyway, yeah, we are very much inspired by Terry Winograd's public UI seminar, where you could just go there. I mean, it was for students could get credit, but like the whole community was invited. And also Ted Selker's New Paradigms for Using Computers conference that he had at IBM Almaden Research was a really open, warm, cozy talk back to the people on the panel, back and forth kind of a symposium that really inspired me and a lot of other people. So we want to also, like, Interval had people come by. Interval Research had like a public regular, maybe weekly meetings of like whoever was just coming through town and had something interesting to talk about. I did that once, but I saw like some really amazing people talk about what they were working on at all three of these really interesting open symposiums, and I want to do that again, but like on a much larger scale now that it's acceptable to do video conferencing thanks to COVID, So let's see. So the magnum opus here, I've got this huge library of, plugged together objects for a wedding play set, and it's really a good time to finish it. So now it's an orchestration kit. It's not just an expansion pack with a bunch of wallpapers. So, and we were very focused on like how can we enable the player to put on a huge elaborate wedding and tell stories about it. That's the thing. You'd hire a photographer. Different photographers would like be interested in photographing different things, and you can do this in The Sims already. It has, in the object semantics, it has like take a snapshot of what is on the screen right now and write this title and description. So there's already the primitive built in that's needed to implement a photographer in the game that you can hire to come to your wedding. And there's a magazine, and you can pick different photographers. Like maybe one photographer focuses on your best friends, So because there's this AI in there, lowercase game AI, semantics, decision trees, that says, what am I going to do next? Oh, I'm a photographer. Oh, there's somebody who has a close relationship to the groom or the bride, or the bride and the bride, or the groom and the groom, and let's go take a picture. So it's this like multiple ball and play pinball machine, and you're picking all these pre-programmed balls with behavior and throwing them in together. So yeah, anyway, so Cupid, I said, speed dating, marriage, crowd sitter, the sit down and shut up, please. The Buddha statue keeps you from crapping yourself and other unpleasant things. The hope chest is like the tip of the pyramid, this narrative scaffolding. And Donna, oh my God! Now this is so much better than just wallpaper. Okay, really elaborate furniture, the newlyweds beds, food buffets, tables, dolls, doll houses, the wedding cakes. So anyway, so yeah, Heather's given permission to share this. So why it matters now. When this playset was conceived, same-sex marriage was not yet legal across the United States. We were trying to prove a point. Agitprop, or as Ian says, it's procedural rhetoric. Okay, we're rolling out this playset, and it has rules in it, and those rules have something strong to say, and it says it just by how the rules play out and the behavior. And so anyway, yes, agitprop. So about inclusion and family play, not exclusion. Intentional inclusion, procedural rhetoric, politics and orchestration rules. Cupid, crowd sitter, Buddha. Like Cupid says, yeah, you can fall in love with the cat of the neighbor's cat, but it doesn't go any further than that. So crowd sitter and Buddha, these are procedural rhetoric. Okay, it's not a manifesto dialogue. You end up just holistically understanding the manifesto by playing. So and then the Dumbo voting machines. So anyway, Ian Bogoss, that's his buzzword. He calls oh God, he has a great. Anyway, I won't get into that. He's going to be a great guest. So the Dumbo voting machine is dated. It's charming because it's Pat Buchanan. You accidentally voted for Pat Buchanan. Remember the butterfly ballots? So it's got all these. A very badly aged P. Diddy pops up in a dialogue and tells you to vote or die. That did not age well. There's there's Baxter the monkey resetting a voting machine. But anyway, this is just classic agitprop. So and now like we've got a machine for making these aren't just like shows. This isn't a YouTube video. It's a downloadable procedural object. Okay, it's not just one. It's a constellation of interacting procedural objects in a simulation. So but anyway, yes, where were we? We have a pie menu with monkey on it that monkeys with the voting machine. And Osama bin Laden appears and scares the piss out of you, and then you pee on the floor. So there's like a big in front of the voting machines lined up. There was like this ever expanding puddle of urine. And the vote or die. If you get Diddy popping up telling you to vote or die, if you say die, you catch on fire and die. So like we can fucking deliver on our threats. So, but I think there's like two ways to die. You could get electrocuted too. So yeah, I don't know. Didn't age well. Yeah, we are not. This is not election denial. In fact, I think we'll talk to Ted Selker about this. He worked on this. Is a lot of these criticisms that he and others were making about voting machines got listened to and applied. So. But anyway, it's not perfect, but it's activism. Properly researched, not from YouTube videos, is it works. So valid issues, Anyway, so yes, this is a satirical lab bench from 20 years ago. Can't believe it. So anyway, now there's a whole thing we have to do about Spore. So this is another amazing GDC video of Will that he lied to EA about what his talk was going to be about, and gave a false title, and then started giving the talk and says, actually, this is about Spore. I wanted to show it you, the developers, first. And he just snuck it out. So, now, anyway, so yes, hand-authored artisanal UCC. So procedural and AI-assisted creation are things that we're moving towards now. So basically, we've got, this is all to support Will Wright's legacy games, but we're opening it up to other games too. And, the idea is, a lot of his games are like Maxis and EA, SimCity and The Sims and Spore. But now he has his own company, Gallium, and he's making Proxy. And that is exactly what Proxy is all about. It is like, it's a match made in heaven, or like Soul City, having a Soul City proxy bridge, so that we can rescue like all these Sims characters are like evacuating their save files because EA was bought by Jared Kushner and the Saudis into a place that they can live, that's Will made, that's outside of EA's walled garden and barbed wired fences and guards booths, and bone saws and cryptocurrencies, So the idea, there's a lot of, one of our stretch goals here is to run Little Computer People, the original Apple II version of one dude and his dog living in this little simulated house, and in a Apple II emulator that runs in the browser, and then reading off of the floppy disk image that it writes into YAML in Soul City, importing him over the bridge into Soul City, and then maybe you import your Sims character or your Proxy character, and they fall in love, and then they go off, and if you see, Little Computer People only has room for one person and one dog, but you could at least rescue them from that low resolution little micro world into Soul City, and then they could go visit other worlds and they could live there. Stardew Valley is going to be great. Okay, so I really want to do the Stardew Valley bridge. So, and that's what we want to do: have people on that know how, like the author of Tiny Life. And let's just talk about, how would we do this? How do your save files work? What's in them? How do we read and write them? Is there a library? How do we write extensions? How can we make tools for making plug-in objects and like that? So we'll have that discussion. He's not obligated to do it, but we can hand that out as designs. It's like, how would you do it? Oh, I'd look at this documentation here and this code here and this website here, and then I'd use these with SQLite and blah blah blah, and that's what I would do. So boom, design document. So, and just put that out there, and he can do it next episode, or somebody else can contribute. So especially people who are already making Tiny Life plugins. So anyway, let's see, that's this one file. I think I managed to stay on the same file, but I'll do more files later.